Hello, everybody. Ephemeral Style here. I am returning as the coach of the Colorado Dragons Den for Season 4 of the Turn 17 Rocks Draft League. So I'm here today to take you through our draft and also our Week 1 matchup and game because I am lazy and am doing them all at once. So buckle up. It's going to be a bit of a longer video. There'll be timestamps if you don't care about the draft analysis and you just want to see the battle. So if that's you, check out down below. There'll also be a stamp for the Teambuilder if that's something you are interested in. And let's get right into it. I'm going to start with a bit of context for the draft. This is Scarlet Violet OU. It is point-based drafting, 16 players, drafting a minimum of 10 to 12 Pokemon. Lower tier Terra, not quite low tier, but it's still no free Terra. Each Terra captain is allowed 3 types, with one of them being a stab type. And we are the 9th overall pick, which in a 16-player draft is probably the worst spot you can get. But I'm pretty happy with how this team turned out, so let's get into it. Our first overall pick is Greninja. In a 16-player draft like this, I think speed falls off the board really quickly. Good Pokemon with good speed stats. And so Greninja is more traditionally like a second-round pick. You don't really see it that often in the first round. But obviously it's the ninth pick. We didn't have, the premier options, Iron Valiant, Spectre, or Deoxys Speed. Those are never going to make it to us. And I do think Greninja is arguably a first round pick with a lot of the things that it can do. So we have our premier speed stat, outspeeding 110s and 115s, and all that is really great. We just have to worry about, Choice Scarf Pokemon and, Photosynthesis Mons or Quark Drive Mons, but forcing them to run speed when they might otherwise take advantage of a spoiler alert, a slower team, and be able to run some more, modest or adamant or booster attack and whatnot. We can sort of punish that with Greninja, which will hopefully dissuade that in the builder, which is really nice to pick up early on. And Greninja has a lot to bring to the table besides just a really good speed stat. We have 3 abilities that are all good. Torrent is definitely the worst of them, and I don't think I'll bring it that often, but Greninja is good even with just Torrent. Protean can turn us into a bit of a wall breaker thanks to our ability to get stab on all of our coverage options, as well as our really great revenge killer. And being able to flip a lot of our type matchups is really useful into Pokemon that might beat us 1v1 otherwise. And with a decent attack stat, we also have options to Sword Stance and use physical coverage like Gunk Shot and Brick Break that we don't get on a special side, which is really nice. And then our other premier ability is Battle Bond, which is just an incredible ability for cleaning Greninjas. With 122 speed, you can force a KO, get a boost, and outrun things that were looking to outspeed you with Choice Scarves. And with a +1 boost to your attack or even your attack, you can easily clean up games. So hopefully that happens this season. One last thing is that Greninja can also be sort of a hazard suicide lead, with the option to set up spikes, anti-spikes, and taunts for other lead mons to prevent them from setting up or getting up their own hazards. So that is our first round pick. Second round, we wanted to get something that supports Greninja, so I grabbed Galarian Slowking. I didn't think it would make it to round 3, so I grabbed it now. Galarian Slowking brings a lot to the table for Greninja in that it resists our Fairy weakness, our Fighting weakness, and our Grass weakness. So it's really great for covering. Also, the Pokemon that click, Thunderbolt or something, we have enough Spadaf that we can eat up neutral hits a lot of the time, which is one of the reasons Galarian Slowking is so good. Being able to just sponge neutral hits and pivot out with Chilly Reception and Regenerator, allowing you to do that over and over again, enables a lot of the rest of your team to do the things that they want to do. Additionally, with a 110 special attack stat, we're not passive. We can break walls with a decent amount of coverage moves or set up future sights. We also have Toxic and Thunderwave as, crippling options to set up sweepers or to try and slow down opposing offense. And also worth mentioning is that it opens the door for a little bit of hail support with our chili reception pivoting move, which we'll get into a bit later. Next up is our round 3 pick in Zapdos. Zapdos is a great ground immunity, which we need when we're picking up Galarian Slowking, because that's one of the things we really fear. We also have two great abilities here, Static and Pressure. Static is great for punishing physical attackers, especially things with like U-turn or multi-hit moves. Paralysis can be so detrimental to physical offense, and it's nice to pick up a Mon that wants to be physically bulky when Galarian Slowking wants to be specially bulky, so much more than physical. So that's great for Zapdos. Also, 100 base speed is pretty good with 125 attack. You can also bring really offensive Zapdos if teams aren't ready for it, with options like agility, throw spray, metal sound, stuff like that. Zapdos can turn into a cleaner or a wall breaker in its own right, which is really great. Our electric flying coverage is also very helpful for Greninja because it pressures opposing water and grass types that might, soak up Hydro Pumps or Surfs or even Liquidations, I guess, if that's what we're going for, and make cleaning up the game just a lot easier. So that is our 3rd pick. Our 4th pick is another fat special attacker, Primarina. So this is a little odd, especially because we have, G-King and Zapdos already, and we already have a water type in Greninja. But I think that, first of all, a bulky water in addition to an offensive water is not really that big of an issue in draft. I don't think the overlap is really that bad. And additionally, a lot of fairy types were falling off the board around this time, and a lot of fairy weak Pokemon had been picked up, which makes sense because they all tend to be really strong. Well, the top of the metagame tends to be fairy weak, rather. So I wanted to grab a good fairy, and because of our awkward draft spot, that meant I had to grab one right now, so I grabbed Primarina. Torrent is a lot better on Prim than it is on Greninja, thanks to our high HP stat, letting us live and get down into that Torrent range, and also Substitute Prim being a pretty common set, meaning we can sub down and get ourselves into range, and sponging a hit and getting off a really powerful water type attack back. Liquid Voice all gives us some sound-based options with things like Sparkling Aria or Psychic Noise, which might have bad type matchups otherwise. So Primarina with 116 SPDEF also functions as another special pivot in case Galarian Slowking happens to have a poor matchup. At 126 attack is even higher than Zapdos. So another great wall breaker to open things up for potential Greninja endgames. Also, base 60 speed is slow, but it is worth mentioning that with a Choice Scarf, Primarina can outspeed unboosted 110s, which is a pretty common speed tier. So just something to keep in mind is that is always an option to run Choice Scarf with our huge special attack stat. Next up is Big Mamoswine, who really fills a lot of roles that the team was lacking up to this point. We have a huge 130 attack stat. Up to this point, our team is very special attacking heavy, so it's nice to have some physical pressure. We have strong priority, which, Greninja gets Water Shuriken, but that's just not a great move, to be honest. It can enable some Battle Bond stuff, but that's besides the point. So we have a strong physical attacker with priority and also hazards. With Oblivious, Mamoswine is a really great stealth rock setter because we're immune to taunt. We're also immune to intimidate. Thick Fat gives us a lot of flexibility in our type matchups that drafting a ground ice type can sort of hamper you. Ground Ice is also a really strong offensive type, and with 80 speed, we are a pretty decent Choice Band abuser or a Choice Scarf abuser, depending on the matchup. And a lot of teams are going to struggle to switch into that coverage if we are like an attacking variant. Also worth mentioning is that if Galarian Slowking sets up the Hail for our 80 base defense and gives it a boost, we can actually trade with a lot of physical attackers that would pressure us out otherwise. Something like a Ogerpon Wellspring, for example, can't OHKO us anymore, and we can get a huge amount of damage off if the team would struggle with that otherwise. So that's really great. I really like Mamoswine given our first couple picks. Moving on is Vikavolt, our first Terra captain with the Terra types Electric for stab and then Steel and Ghost. So Vikavolt is another ground immunity thanks to its ability Levitate. It doesn't really do much for our speed problem with 43 base speed, but with Sticky Webs, Primarina and Mamoswine become serious threats, and even Zapdos without a lot of investment can outspeed teams. And with 16 players, I think that hazard removal is at a premium. And in a league that has item clause such as this, and you can only fit one pair of heavy duty boots, sticky webs can be very problematic for some teams to deal with. And Vikavolt is one of those Pokemon that if you see it, you're going to have to consider it in the builder. You're going to have to consider what you're going to do about sticky webs, how you're going to remove them, how you're going to stop Vikavolt from setting them up. Which can put a lot of pressure on in the builder, which is pretty good for a low point Terra captain. And I think it's also nice that Vikavolt is more than just a one-note hazard mon. With our huge 145 attack, we can break walls really easily. Terra, Electric, Volt Switch, or Thunderbolt, if you don't have a good ground type, it's going to blow a lot of teams up. And you do have Energy Ball for those ground types as well, who can't hit you thanks to your Levitate ability. Terra Steel takes advantage of our Levitate ability. We are naturally resistant to fighting in our unterrid state, and we also have Terra Ghost. And we are immune to ground, which leaves us with fire, but we have Pokemon like Thick Fat Mamoswine and Primarina to sort of handle those scary fire types that might come in and pressure us. And Ghost is 2 black Rapid Spin. With 90 defense, Vikavolt also has a decent amount of physical bulk and can, sometimes run Rocky Helmets depending on the other team's physical attackers if they don't have coverage. Bug Electric with Levitate and especially Terra Steel with Levitate can be pretty tricky to hit. So Vikavolt is a little bit more than just a sticky web bot, which is great for a Terra captain. Next up is another Terra captain that I'm surprised made it back to me, but that is Azelf. We had to fill the Lake Trio out after using Uxie and Mesprit in previous leagues. I just had to complete the trio. So another ground immunity and Levitate is maybe a bit much at this point, but it doesn't really hurt. What's great about Azelf is the base 115 speed stat slots in really great in between Greninja and Zapdos. And with the ability to Terra, Psychic, Fairy, and Fire, and our aforementioned great speed stat and our really flexible offensive stats, as you can see, 125 in both, Azelf can be a really scary Pokemon that can be sort of built to work in a specific matchup. It's a good revenge killer. It's a good sweeper with moves like Nasty Plot, and also Mystical Power to give you that 100% guaranteed special attack boost while still dealing damage. Terra, Fire, Flamethrower, Nasty Plot is really strong in the teams that don't have a traditional fire resist, and for a team without a fire type such as ours, it does have a nice option to hit steel types when otherwise we were sort of banking on Mamoswine for that up until this point. Terra Fairy is just a great type. You can live that one turn you need to get your Nasty Plot up, and you also have fairy coverage with moves like Dazzling Gleam to really take advantage of it. We're not as great on the physical attacking side. We have moves like Zen Headbutt and Drain Punch, which are, workable in the right matchups. We might have to be Terra Blast, Fairy, or Fire if we really need it. But yeah, Azelf also functions as another stealth rocker when Mamoswine can't fit it or wants to be a different set and not get chipped trying to put up rocks. Azelf is a good fast stealth rocker with options like Explosion to sort of immediately give us momentum back after getting hazards up and prevent things like Rapid Spin, and is an offensive powerhouse and offensive enabler in its own right. Next up is our own hazard removal, Serena. I think Serena is a really great low-tier hazard removal option. We have good defense and special defense stats, a somewhat workable speed stat, Queenly Majesty is actually really nice for Greninja because if you can get up a Battle Bond boost with your already really high speed stat, the only thing you're really fearing is priority. So being able to switch into Serena and get a free turn back with that, given the matchup, is really nice. We also have a pretty big attack stat at 120, so just something to think about. We have another wall breaker here with really powerful stab moves, just power whip mainly. Drop kicks pretty good as well on supporting sets. Serena has a lot of really powerful supporting options actually, with rapid spin, knockoff, drop kick to cripple opposing physical attackers, synthesis for recovery, and even screens options. To I guess also we had Primarina with screens options, but that's not something you want to fit a lot of the time, so I didn't really mention it. U-turn also gives us pivoting options. So Serena really does a lot of roll compression here for not a lot of points, which is really great for us. Next up is Arcaludon. There's no extra sprite for him, so please enjoy these bridges. Arcaludon gives us a lot of physical bulk, which we were sort of lacking up to this point. We had some usable physical bulk with Pokemon like Mamoswine and Hail, Zapdos, Primarina, Vikavolt. They're all okay, but the 130 defense just blows them out of the water. And with an ability like Stamina, it just becomes really punishing to try and take down Arcaludon with physical moves, which makes Arcaludon a really great Assault Vest user to bolster our pretty poor 65 Spadef. Arcaludon also is another rocker, potentially. With 125 attack, we can also function as a wall breaker with Draco Meteor and Flash Cannon, which can be hard to switch into. We have Iron Defense Body Press ideas with Stamina. We also have Sturdy as a great anti-offense option to live a hit and get off a huge Draco Meteor back. Or, if that's not enough, we also have Thunder Wave, which will allow the rest of our team to maybe get in a hit when they wouldn't otherwise and stop an offensive sweeper that's about to win the game. Also, at 85 speed, Arcaludon is surprisingly fast, a lot faster than a lot of other bulky Pokemon, which means that we can handle like bulk on bulk matchups a lot easier. We also have the potential to be Choice Scarf abusers, which is really nice. I think I mentioned this already. It's another stealth rocker, but also some utility options in Dragon Tail, Thunder Wave, and I believe Arcaludon also gets screens, which is something to keep in mind. So this was sort of one of the best mons that was still on the board, and we had a decent amount of points left, and I think it filled the team pretty well. So it wasn't a mod that I necessarily planned for, but we'll see. I'm hopeful that it'll fill a lot of the holes that we were missing. And for our last pick, don't have a lot of points left, so you got to grab utility where you can. So we are going to pick up Kamala as a third Terra Captain, who's Terra Normal, Terra Dark, and Terra Poison. Spectrier is on the board, so it's important to get a normal type, I think, or at least a dark type, and Greninja is a dark type, but you really don't want to use it to be checking Spectrier defensively. You'll get worn down super quick. So we grabbed Kamala. Kamala is also another rapid spinner for matchups where Serena isn't great, or where Serena really wants to be a wall breaker with moves like Power Whip and Triple Axle and Play Rough and stuff like that. Kamala can help enable that by bringing spin when Serena can't. Also, 115 attack is pretty good. And you wouldn't believe it, but this little koala gets an insane amount of coverage, like Earthquake, Knockoff, Superpower, Gunk Shot. It's frankly ridiculous, the amount of moves that Kamala gets that is unfortunately held back by its pretty poor speed and HP and defense stat. But we do have a good special defense stat for scary special attackers, especially scary ghosts. So that is Kamala. It's not the greatest Pokemon, but I think it's really good for the point value, and you got to pick up utility with your points where you can. Okay, so that is the team there. Spoilers on the right for our week 1 matchup. We'll talk about that in a minute. I think we have some pretty good speed tiers there on the right. We have a lot of defensive options. We have a lot of roles that are a little bit double dipped, which is nice for redundancy's sake. I think this team is going to be a tough one to build with, just because it's so flexible, which is really good. Obviously, it just means that I, as the builder and the pilot, have to be on top of my game, which is a harder ask. So I'm hopeful that we can bring it to grand finals this time. We fell short last season, but I'm excited to see how this goes, and I think that this team can do it. Really happy with what we have here. Let me know what you think about the team down below, and let's get into our week 1 matchup. All right, our week 1 matchup is against JWKJr and the Sixers. Their team here on the right is very scary, getting Rillaboom Sneasler in addition to Pokemon like Goldango and Iron Bundle and Terra Gyarados is frankly quite illegal. The options that Smeargle can bring in Force and Prep is also really scary. Hitmontop is a really strong Terra Captain. So let's get into the team for this build. Our first Pokemon is Galarian Slowking. Iron Bundle is just such a menace that we need something to handle a Specs Iron Bundle, and that is going to be Assault Vest Galarian Slowking. We have the special attack to blow it up with either Psychic or Sludge Bomb, depending on what's in the back. Either Hisuian Goodra or Crocodile can be immune to those. But that should always kill uninvested Iron Bundle after Rock Chip if it's not a Boots variant. Flamethrower is a good neutral click that 2-hit KOs it. Threatens burns on Pokemon that would otherwise want to switch in. It's a way to hit Golden Go. And Focus Blast is there as I really need to kill Iron Bundle in a single button click, and I have to gamble the game on this Focus Blast button. I really don't want to click it, but it's there if we have to click it. So with the 96 modest nature, that gives us the rolls for Flamethrower that I was talking about earlier, as well as Sludge Bomb and Psychic, and everything else is going into our HP and Spadef to take on the menace that is a Choice Specs bundle. Next up is our Mamoswine. We are bringing a Focus Sash anti-offense set to stop Pokemon like Unburdened Sneasler from getting out of control, or a Scarf Moxie Crocodile. So to that end, we are bringing Stealth Rock if we have the option to get it up, Endeavor if we get brought down to our Sash, High Horsepower because there is a Rillaboom on the other side setting up terrain, and Ice Shard as our only Ice type move, because looking at the matchup and the calcs on Adamant Ice Shard, everything that I would want to click, for example, like Icicle Crash into, I still 2-hit KO with Ice Shard, and thanks to priority, I can get that 2-hit KO off. Whereas I'll get outsped and still take a hit either way. So there's just no need to fit another move when Ice Shard handles it. We have speed for min speed Rillaboom if he happens to be something like a 252 HP, 252 attack, which is something that I thought about in the builder when I had Rillaboom a lot. And otherwise, even though we are Focus Sash, everything is going to our HP stat. If we can afford to not have to use the Focus Sash, it is nice to be able to live an extra hit or two. Next up is our Zapdos, who is here to handle Sneasler with HP and defense investment to handle even Choice Band Sneasler and Cohort Cloak to avoid Dire Claw hacks. We are looking pretty good with Static as an option to paralyze it, to enable some of our other Pokemon to handle it if it happens to get out of control. Hurricane blows it up, obviously. Roost lets us live, especially if it's locking itself into something like close combat or putting itself in range of like heat waves and stuff like that by lowering its Spadef. Heat Wave exists for us to hit Pokemon like Golden Go, and Fish for burns on Pokemon like Hisuian Goodra, and U-Turn is for momentum when there's a Crocodile on the other side. Next up is our Vikavolt, who is not bringing Sticky Web this week. We're actually a physically defensive Rocky Helmet variant to take on Pokemon like Rillaboom and Crocodile a bit better. With our Terra Steel especially, Bug Buzz just blows up those aforementioned Pokemon. Energy Ball is good for a Terraground Gyarados, which we otherwise can struggle a bit to deal with, and Zapdos can get overwhelmed trying to handle Sneasler and Dragon Dance Gyarados, and Rillaboom and other physical threats. So we needed some more. Light Screen is there if we really need to click something and like to stop Golden Go from coming in and being a nuisance. We have the option of Light Screen there. Next is our spinner for the week is Kamala with Heavy Duty Boots, because I wasn't bringing them on Zapdos, so I don't lose to Dire Claw, hopefully. We are bringing Rapid Spin. Knockoff and Earthquake are for Golden Go, especially Balloon Golden Goes, and Wish is to get our health back. Looking back at this builder after the game, I really would have liked Protect as one of these options, and probably would have just gotten rid of Knockoff and said, if he's Balloon Gold, he's Balloon Gold. There was a lot of opportunities where Kamala couldn't continue to check the threats it needed to because the Wish couldn't land because it got forced out. But yeah, we are very specially defensive to take on Golden Go and to try and keep hazards off our side of the field. And finally, we have our win condition of the week, Greninja. This is a Swords Dance Battle Bond Life Orb set to set up on Pokemon like Hisui and Goodra, who would otherwise super wall us. We can probably get a free Swords Dance off if it doesn't Dragon Tail us, and then smash through with Brick Break, Night Slash, and Liquidation. If there's no Rillaboom on the opposing team, this Greninja is probably going to win the game. So that's just something to consider. Because of Battle Bond and the speed stats in the team, we are going really greedy with our speed stat this week, only bringing speed for Crocodile, because we really need that attack boost to take on some Hisui and Goodra variants with Adamant. And with a speed boost, it doesn't really matter anyways. So that is our Greninja set. This was for a long time in the builder and our Caludon, who added a lot of physical bulk to help out Vikavolt and Zapdos from getting overwhelmed. We had Iron Defense Body Press and Dragon Tail as an anti-offense measure. I'm not sure if I like that over Greninja. Greninja is really strong here, but I don't know if we can play to the conditions that it needs to win. But I also am probably just bad at the video game, and that's just a fact of life. So let's get into the game and how it went. So we're going to go ahead and lead off with our Mamoswine here. It's a pretty good lead into everything on the opposing team. We have the Focus Sash. We can also get out of there as needed. We see the Sneasler lead, which is interesting. There's no Hitmontop, so I imagine our opponent was going to try and counter lead a Vikavolt, which sort of clues me in that this Sneasler might be taunting, which obviously won't work on an Oblivious Mamoswine, but that might be why it's leading into Vikavolt. I decide that if I use my Focus Sash here with high horsepower to take out the Sneasler on the first turn of the game, that will really free up Zapdos. I don't think this was a great decision in hindsight, and I'll get into that a bit later, but we do take down Sneasler in turn 1 of the game, and Golden Go is going to come in. So we're going to go into Kamala, and we're going to get Power Gemmed, and that's going to do a lot of damage. Power Gem's a really interesting click. And here is probably my first, depending on how you look at the first hand, this is probably one of my first mistakes of the game. I should be looking at the calc here and saying, wow, that Goldengo is 100% choice specs, because there's no way Power Gem does that much damage to my Kamala if it's not choice specs. I didn't do that. So I didn't realize that this was specs until it was a little bit later. I am going to go ahead and Wish up here as Crocodile is going to come in and get out into our Zapdos on a pretty obvious close combat. We are going to get our HP back. Here, U-turn is probably the right option, given that Goodra is probably going to be coming in here, but we're just going to Heat Wave, get an idea of this Goodra's bulk, and we're just going to go out into Kamala. Thanks to Earthquake and the Heat Wave damage, I know that I'm going to do a ton here. I also don't want to get knocked off a really important item, but Draco Meteor even though we have a ton of bulk, is going to pick up our Kamala. Mamoswan's going to come in here. I don't see a hazard mover on the other side of the team, so I'm going to take this opportunity to get up Stealth Rock, which I'm not sure if this was the best option. I think potentially saving this as an Ice Shard Pokemon is strong, or picking up this Gujar right away is also strong, given that we don't have anything that wants to come in on this, but that's what happened. So we are going to get up Stealth Rocks and go down to knock off, and Zapdos is going to come in here. Honestly, Greninja probably could have come in on a minus attack Gudra and Brick Broke and force Rillaboom in to take Chip. Really what I need to do is force Rillaboom to take Chip and die, so that way Greninja can win the game from this point. That is the end game I should be playing towards, even though I am not. So Zapdos is going to get knocked. We're going to lose our Covert Cloak, but Sneasler's gone, so that's less of an issue. Krookodile is going to come in here on a Heat Wave. No burn. He's going to get his rocks up, which is really bad because our spinner is down. Our Zapdos doesn't have boots, and our Vikavolt hasn't terrored yet, so we are weak to Stealth Rocks. I was going to roost on an anticipated Stone Edge, but that did not come out here. But we are back to full. Guja's going to come back in and take this Heat Wave. We're going to get the... Nope, we're not going to get the burn here. Roost here to sort of scout what he's going for, which is a Thunderbolt. Which is nothing. Very little. Heat Wave, again, honestly, I needed to roost on this turn. Heat Wave was greedy, especially because there were rolls where Heat Wave burn kills Gudra and puts me in a really bad spot with a 56% Zapdos. Draco Meteor comes out. Burn thankfully doesn't KO, which means we get a turn to roost on a -2 Gudra, and we are still going to be at about 50%. So pretty poor play. And Golden Go is going to come in. From this point, with Stealth Rocks up and no way to remove them, we no longer check Rillaboom, because we're going to come in and take 25% and get 2-hit KO'd, or 1-hit KO'd because we don't have speed most of the time. So I'm going to let Zapdos go down here. I should have had more health, but now Greninja is going to come in and force this Golden Go out. Iron Bundle comes in and is going to reveal that it is Boots. I imagine that he was not expecting a physical Greninja, otherwise Krookodile could have been a good pickup here. We're going to do 43%, and we're going to get out of there on the Freeze Dry by going into our Slowking Galar without specs on Iron Bundle. This is a great matchup for Slowking. As you can see, Freeze Dry does very little, except it does freeze us, which is very sad. Otherwise, Slowking, it looked like it could do a ton of damage to this team, getting off really powerful hits and taking advantage of like bulky Vikavolt to come back in and use Regenerator to potentially win or chip this team into range for Greninja endgame. That freeze does enable our opponent to go out into Golden Go, which sucks. A Flamethrower here, which is what we clicked, would have been absolutely massive. Golden Go is going to Thunderbolt, and we are going to Flamethrower. Again, Golden Go doing 22% should have been a big wake-up call to me after, Iron Bundle was doing 17% Stab Freeze Dry, that this Golden Go is choice specs. Obviously, he was thinking that Shadow Ball is really obvious and that Greninja would be the switch-in, which is why he Thunderbolted. But we really need chip on this Golden Go, which is why we Flamethrowered. And we also get another burn here. So here, I don't know that he's choice specs because I haven't looked at the calc. I'm thinking he's going to Shadow Ball to try and pick up the KO on this Galarian Slowking because that really opens up Iron Bundle, even though it's not specs. I think he's going to Shadow Ball, so I make the play to go out into Greninja, not realizing that he's locked into Thunderbolt. And he's going to decide to stay in and Thunderbolt and pick up our Greninja, and at this point the game is pretty much lost. We're going to go back into Slowking, and Golden Go is going to switch out into Krookodile, who is going to not like taking this Flamethrower, but we are going to have to get out into our Vikavolt, who takes rocks, and then also gets crit by this knockoff, which sucks. And also with our roll, we don't end up killing this Krookodile, which also sucks. We Terra Steel, we survive it in the knockoff, and we pick up the KO with Bug Buzz, but at this point, we can't stop Rillaboom. Golden Go comes in because it's also going to chip Slowking into range for Rilla, and that is going to be the game. We are going to get the KO here on Golden Go. Our opponent didn't want to. Our opponent pretty much had to give up a sack somewhere. we sludge bombed in case it was the Rilla that came in for more damage, since the burn was going to finish it off anyways. Rillaboom comes in, and knockoff is going to finish the game. So I think I had lines to win this game, and I did not play for them. I had a game plan, or a win condition in Greninja that I didn't do a great job playing towards, excuse me. And I think I had a better team somewhere that it could have been built. I don't think this was the best team for the matchup. And I think that is one of the things that I'm going to struggle with this season, is this team has so many options in both Pokemon and sets that it's going to be hard for me to figure out what the right bring is. And also, I just need to play better. I think, even if I had been looking at the calcs against that Golden Go, I think I also just didn't execute a good game plan. And that's something I need to work on going forward. Hopefully we can break the streak of losing to Jeff week 1 of these seasons, and then immediately also losing week 2 and just having a really tough comeback season. It's worked out for us a couple times, but it doesn't feel good, to be honest with you. So sorry if you're a fan that it looks like it's going in that direction again. Congratulations if you're a hater, you won this week. And we'll see you next week to see how that goes. Bye-bye.